Right now, you're wearing clothes. That probably doesn't feel remarkable. A shirt, a jacket, a pair of jeans, whatever it is, you put it on without thinking. Most of us do. But if you stop and think about it for a moment, it becomes surprisingly strange because almost every other animal on Earth manages perfectly well without clothes. Wolves don't wear clothes, lions don't wear clothes, elephants don't wear clothes. Yet every morning, billions of humans cover themselves with fabric before leaving the house, which raises a simple question that turns out to have a surprisingly complicated answer. Why did ancient humans start wearing clothes? At first glance, the answer seems obvious because they got cold. Simple, logical, almost certainly incomplete. Because once scientists started looking closely at the evidence, they discovered something strange. The timeline doesn't quite work. To understand why, we need to start with another mystery. Humans are weirdly hairless. Compared to most large mammals, we're practically naked. Chimpanzees have thick hair, gorillas have thick hair, bears, wolves, and horses carry their own protection wherever they go. Humans don't. Scientists believe our ancestors gradually lost much of their body hair as they adapted to hotter environments. One reason may have been endurance hunting. Instead of relying on speed, humans relied on stamina. We evolved millions of sweat glands that allowed us to cool our bodies far more efficiently than most animals. While a furry animal eventually overheats, a sweating human can keep moving for hours. It was a powerful survival advantage, at least when the weather was warm. Which brings us back to clothing. The traditional explanation is simple. Humans lost their fur, entered colder regions, got cold, and invented clothes. The problem is that some evidence suggests humans were already wearing clothes before they entered those colder parts of the world. And that's where the mystery begins. If clothing appeared before extreme cold became a problem, then why did humans start wearing it in the first place? The answer comes from one of the strangest sources imaginable: lice. Researchers studying human parasites noticed something unusual. Humans host two closely related types of lice: head lice and body lice. The important difference is that body lice live in clothing, not on skin, not in hair, in clothing. Without clothing, they cannot survive. Scientists realized that body lice must have evolved from head lice at some point in the past. If they could estimate when that split happened, they could estimate when humans began wearing clothes regularly. When genetic studies were performed, the results were surprising. Body lice appear to have diverged from head lice somewhere between roughly 80,000 and 170,000 years ago. Think about that. One of the earliest clues about human clothing wasn't preserved in fabric or fossils. It was preserved in a parasite. The lice may know when humans started wearing clothes before humans do. Of course, knowing when clothing appeared doesn't tell us exactly why it appeared. One possibility is protection, not necessarily from freezing temperatures, but from everyday problems. Sharp plants, biting insects, harsh sunlight, rough terrain. Even a simple animal hide draped across the body could make life noticeably easier. The earliest clothes were probably extremely basic. No buttons, no pockets, no fashion, just practical protection. But humans rarely leave useful inventions alone. Once something works, we improve it, and around 50,000 years ago, clothing underwent a major transformation. Archaeologists began finding bone needles with tiny eyes designed for threading fibers. That may sound insignificant today. Back then, it was revolutionary. A loose animal hide can keep you somewhat warm. A fitted garment can help keep you alive. And timing mattered. Large parts of the world were becoming colder. Ice sheets expanded, temperatures dropped, and survival became more difficult. For humans moving into Europe and Northern Asia, clothing was no longer a convenience. It was survival technology. The groups capable of producing better clothing could travel farther, survive harsher winters, and settle environments that would otherwise be impossible. In many ways, clothing became humanity's second skin. Not something evolution gave us, something we engineered ourselves. What's particularly interesting is that modern humans weren't the only ones doing it. Evidence suggests Neanderthals also processed animal hides and likely wore clothing of their own. Different human species facing similar challenges arrived at similar solutions, which makes sense. If you're trying to survive an ice age, warm clothing quickly becomes one of the most valuable technologies imaginable. Over time, clothing continued evolving. Animal hides were joined by plant fibers. Fibers became thread. Thread became fabric. And fabric eventually became one of the foundations of civilization. What started as protection became culture, identity, trade, and tradition. So, why did ancient humans start wearing clothes? The honest answer is probably for several reasons at once: protection, comfort, survival, and eventually much more than that. But the remarkable thing isn't that humans started wearing clothes. It's what clothing allowed them to do afterward. Most animals adapt to the world through biology. Humans adapted through invention. When nature didn't give us enough protection, we built our own. And once we learned how to do that, there were very few environments left that could stop us. Because before humans learned how to conquer the planet, they first learned how to build themselves a second skin.